the test speech. Her name is Caren Harris. Please, when I call her, you give her a warm round of applause. We will now begin the evaluation speech. Our guest speaker is Caren Harris. Caren Harris.
A guy walks into a bar. He sees a beautiful woman. What happens next? Well, if this story was created in Hollywood, you may have the start of a fine romantic comedy. I love these type of movies, but they do follow a bit of a formula. From boy meets girl, to boy screws it up in some way, to boy makes it up and they all live happily after. Often, there are some really bad pickup lines. Today, I'd like to tell you, Toastmasters, guests, and dignitaries, about a really bad pickup line. I imagine the scene in black and white. I picture steam coming up from the sidewalk and the rattle of hidden subway lines that are common in movie sets of New York City. It's November. Our leading lady is 17. Let's call her Gloria. She's pretty, with short, dark hair pulled back and wearing a conservative but attractive dress. And she's a young freshman at Queens College in New York City. She's going to a fraternity party with a friend. At the entrance to the party, they peer in and can see only the outlines of people. And Gloria thinks to herself, well, this doesn't look like much, but I sure am hoping to meet some nice college boys now that I'm finally out of high school. Out from this collegiate haze, Gloria hears a male voice, rich in the vocal timbre of Brooklyn. The short-built one's for me. Gloria looks up at her friend, a former high school basketball player, and knows that she was the object of that delightful remark. So let me ask you, what would you do in such a case? Would you have talked to the guy, or just throw a drink in his face? So who could have said such a crass thing? Enter our leading man. He's 24, 7 years older than Gloria. His name is Edward, but in those days, he still went by Eddie. And picture this. He's wearing plaid pants, a striped shirt, thick Buddy Holly glasses, and was a little pudgy. Although he looked like a little bit of a nerd, I could brag that he actually lettered when he went to Queens. Yeah, he earned a purple Q in bowling. I had no idea if that was cool or not in his social circles, but clearly Eddie was still a charmer. Eddie and Gloria made small talk. Gloria asked him, when did you graduate? But for Eddie, it was actually a bit of a trick question. He thought to himself, what do I tell her? It's been almost 10 years since I finished high school. I don't want to scare her off. Also, when do I tell her that I don't live in the city anymore, but actually live pretty far away? So they moved from that to other challenging topics. Eddie asked Gloria what she was studying, and then he asked her if she liked to cook. Minefield, Gloria informed Eddie that she came from a long line of smart women that do not like to cook. Gloria thought to herself, what am I doing talking to this guy? He's old, lives far away, is a terrible dresser, and isn't really the smoothest talker either. Furthermore, the short-built one sure doesn't suggest that he's interested in my mind. And probably the beginnings of a long-distance relationship started that day. The next week, they went out to dinner. And Gloria was seated so she could see the dessert cart in full view. And slices were disappearing from the richest dark chocolate cake that she had her eye on. She was beginning to get a little bit bothered that there wouldn't be any by the time she finished her dinner. And when Eddie realized what was going on, he sprang into action and he ordered her a slice of cake. And it just sat there off to the side, waiting for her to finish her dinner. But of course, the sad thing happened, and by the time she finished her dinner, she no longer had room for dessert. Oh, dark, dark chocolate tragedy. So what to do next? Well, the next week, they went on their third date. And this time, Eddie actually ordered Gloria chocolate cake for her appetizer instead. He was learning very early that the way to make Gloria happy was to make sure she had an easy supply of good dessert. In fact, it was much more important even than dinner. So you may be curious, what happened next? Did they continue dating? Or did the long-distance relationship ultimately fail? Some of you might even think this is my story. Well, you're almost right. This is my parents' story. Eddie and Gloria are my parents, and that fraternity party was in 1962. The short-built ones for me was the start of our family's own romantic comedy. So can a relationship start with a guy putting his foot in his mouth and still win the girl of his dreams? You bet. This tale also contradicts a little bit one of the things that we hold dear at Toastmasters, which is how critical it is to communicate as effectively and clearly as possible. And that definitely gives us an advantage, but we may be too quick to dismiss those who maybe don't express themselves quite as effectively, or maybe don't dress for success. Just like a bad pickup line. But I encourage you all to take a lesson from Gloria and really listen to other people. Listen with your heart.